Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 2C TV, your global news channel. I'm Maya 2C and this is the undemocratic Britannia. Keir Starmer's government, the central government, cooperating with the local authorities, are going to be cancelling a number of the elections in 2025. You will be taxed, but you will not have representation. You will not have a say on who should be representing you in your local areas. This is becoming a bit of a scandal. Interesting enough, the mainstream media are not really interested in scrutinizing this. I'm not really that surprised, really. But we are here to give you guys the facts as usual. In this live stream, we're going to give you a list of the latest local authorities who have requested to not have an election this coming May, in about 4 months from now. And we're also going to give you guys some facts about each local council and the scandals related to each. You're going to see why some of these people, politicians, don't want an election. They don't want the trouble. They don't want things to be exposed. The media are not really exposing their scandals anyway. We're going to give you guys the list of them, the list of some of the scandals related to each. And some of the list of councils who they have decided to actually be democratic and say, we are going to have our elections. Everything that we are saying goes back to Keir Starmer's leadership, which is a little bit dictatorial, and he doesn't want to listen to criticism. Luckily, he has the backing of the corporate media, and they ask him very soft questions. Now, let's talk about these councils. Before we do that, don't forget, 5 p.m. UK time today, if you're watching this on the 6th of January, if you're watching this live, 5 p.m. UK time, we are going to have a grooming gang's whistleblower, Raja Mia, who's going to be on 2CTV live right here. And feel free to obviously join us live and ask questions, anything you have from him. So put it in your calendar, don't forget the time. Now, let's talk about this. Let's go through the list of the councils who are going to be have requested to cancel the elections. By February, we're going to get a full list of the completed list of the cancelled elections. First things first, let's go to Norfolk. Norfolk County Council. Absolutely fascinating, this one. They don't want an election. Now, between 2013 and 2015, we had a massive scandal, children's services failings. A lot of the issues go back to vulnerable people and kids, by the way. Norfolk's children's services were rated inadequate by Ofsted, highlighting serious concerns about child protection and care. The council faced criticism for failing to safeguard vulnerable children, leading to a government-appointed commissioner overseeing improvements. And surprise, surprise, not much was actually done about it. There are so many of these local scandals, small and big, that have been completely ignored by the establishment and the media. There's not enough scrutiny about this. But if you are watching this from those areas, you need to know. If you're also watching this from just across the country or across the world, you must know. Because some of the problems that we're talking about, that in this case we were talking about the UK, relates to most countries in the Western world in general. Everybody needs to be informed. Now, going back to Norfolk County Council, they also had this issue in 2018, the energy company investment loss. Absolutely embarrassing. They did face criticism after investing £11.5 million of local people's money in a green energy company that later went into administration, resulting in significant financial losses and raising questions about the council's investment strategies. A bunch of muppets running local authorities, taking your money and completely wasting it. Next one. Let's go to Suffolk. Okay, what's going on in Suffolk? They're also not going to have an election. In 2010, they started to cutting cultural services because they don't care about cultural values. They proposed outsourcing its libraries and museums and other cultural services to save costs. The plan faced public backlash with fears that it would diminish service quality and accessibility. The council eventually revised its approach due to the controversy and said, oopsie, I'm sorry, we're going to be actually looking after our cultural heritage. I mean, they didn't really care much until the backlash. They also had a massive failed IT project in 2015. They abandoned a £10 million IT project intended to modernize its computer systems after significant delays and cost overruns, leading to a wasted public funds and criticism over project management. No wonder they don't want an election, because there will be more scrutiny on everything else that's been going on. Next one, let's go to Essex. Yes, Essex County Council. Let's not forget, in 2010, they had a massive expenses claim scandal. Local politicians and councillors were found to have claimed excessive expenses, including luxury hotel stays and first-class travel, leading to public outrage and calls for greater transparency and accountability in council spending. This one is absolutely fascinating because around the same time, in the 2000s, we had the expenses scandals when it came to MPs in the House of Commons. Because that was a national one, people started to listen. But we have the same problem with the expenses on a local level and nobody seems to care. It's a big problem. Going back to Essex, they also had this massive issue in 2018, library closure plans, right? The council announced plans to close or transfer 25 libraries to community groups, which was absolutely chaotic. Sparking public protests and petitions, critics argued the move would harm local communities and reduce access to essential services, which obviously it did. But there is no concern. They still raise your taxes, but they made the massive cuts. Anyway, next one. Warwickshire County Council also would not have a local election this May 2025. In 2010, they had a massive controversy when it came to fire services. Plans to reduce fire service staff and close stations sparked protests. Critics argued that it would compromise public safety. The council proceeded with the cuts, leading to ongoing debates about their impact. And of course, they had a number of massive emergencies and fires in that area that they couldn't handle because they didn't have enough people in the fire service. So, it's not really a surprise. Embarrassing. Warwickshire also, in 2017, had another problem, which was children's services failing, just like the first council. Ofsted rated the council's children's services as requiring improvement, citing concerns over safeguarding practices and the quality of support for vulnerable children. There seems to be a bit of a trend when it comes to local authorities up and down England that they seem to let down a lot of the vulnerable girls, children, women, vulnerable people in general. No urgency. Let's move to Hampshire County Council. They're also not going to have an election. If you're watching this from this area, there we go. Botched road repair contract 2017. That was a little bit embarrassing for them because they did face criticism over a £100 million contract to fix the roads that led to substandard work and increased potholes. I know these are like tiny things and technicalities, and a lot of people say, wow, does it matter? It does matter. It does have a massive impact. Apart from the fact that it's a waste of taxpayers' money, it also has an impact on the roads, which affects the economy and, of course, cost to the taxpayer. Internal review acknowledged failures in contract management and oversight. But at the same time, they also had a massive issue when it came to adult social care budget cuts in 2018. The council implemented significant budget cuts to adult social care services, leading to concerns about the impact on vulnerable adults and criticism over the decision-making process. Again, they will still raise your taxes, they will take more money, but reduce services. There is a problem here because if you think, well, this is just local council, it's not nothing to do with my area, these things happen. No, because symbolically and practically, this is about democracy. Democracy starts on a local level. The reason that we haven't, essentially, as a society, focused much on the local corruption and local democracy, lack of it, is the reason that we turn a blind eye and we are seeing it on the national level. If you fix and focus and scrutinize the local level, then you can also get to the national level. This is the whole thing. A lot of people have been thinking local politics is boring. It could be boring, but it's extremely important if you care about democracy, accountability, and your money that you're paying these idiots. It's still your money. Let's go to East Sussex. Now, these guys also won't have an election. 2018, again, adult social care failings. They did obviously have a massive issue because they found that the council failed to provide the adequate care planning, leading to distress for service users. The council was required to review its procedures and compensate affected individuals. So not only the money was already wasted because they didn't know how to spend it, they also then had to pay a fine, which is more money being used from the taxpayer for the compensations. Absolutely disgusting. They also had a problem in 2014 when it came to School transport policy changes. Yes, this is again a very admin, technical, boring topic, but because there is no scrutiny, these things happen. They did alter the transport policy, reducing eligibility for free transport. Vulnerable people. This decision faced backlash from parents and schools who argued it placed their undue financial burdens on family. If people are paying taxes to get public services, they should get it. There is a reason we are talking about those who are vulnerable, the bottom of society. We're not talking about the middle classes or the rich. Now, let's go to West Sussex County Council. No more elections here for now, 2015. Now, children's services, again, problem in 2019. There seems to be a trend when it comes to kids. Ofsted rated the services as inadequate, citing widespread and serious failures in protecting vulnerable children. The national government had to intervene and appoint a commissioner to oversee necessary improvements, and surprise, surprise, nothing was actually done about that either. Because these problems, some of them might be local, but the central government get involved, which is more money. That means other people from different areas will have to pay for one area, for example, West Sussex. Still nothing gets done. Staying on this area, 2018, another issue with fire and rescue service failings. An inspection found that the fire and rescue service inadequate in several areas, including prevention and protection, leading to calls for urgent improvements and increased funding, which again, surprise, surprise, wasn't actually done. Now, based on our research, let's go to Devon, because no more elections in 2015. Special educational needs failings. In 2019, again, Ofsted and also Care Quality Commission inspection exposed the significant weaknesses in provision for children and special education needs with disabilities. Again, they had to do a massive comprehensive action plan, but not much was actually changed. They also had in 2016 a crisis when it came to the highways maintenance contract issues. They did face criticism because of mismanagement of a £45 million maintenance contract with reports of road conditions. Again, I know I'm repeating it, but you have boring admin problems, but these are millions and millions of pounds on a local level. Put them all together, that's billions of pounds being wasted. Now, Gloucestershire, that's another beauty, isn't it? Goes back to contract management or mismanagement of contracts. In 2014, £150 million maintenance contract was mishandled. Allegations of poor performance, lack of transparency, and they said, we should have better contracts, guys. Can we please have better contracts? What? Just do your job. Same area, 2017. Once again, children's services inadequate. Vulnerable children, safeguarding, completely ignored, massive failure leading to a government intervention and a comprehensive improvement plan. They did make some improvements, but not properly. There's still a lot of vulnerable kids who are not getting safeguarding. So, Kent, let's go to the final council. I think there's one more as well. Kent County Council, no elections. Unlawful school transport charges in 2011. This was really bad, which kind of got big, a little bit big in the local area, but not nationally. The council was found to have charged parents for school transport in a manner deemed unlawful, leading to refunds and a review of their policies. This is fascinating, isn't it? That there's no proper accountability. There was also this weird thing with the council investing in Icelandic banks. I know, in 2008, the council invested £50 million of taxpayers' money in banks in Iceland that collapsed during the financial crisis, resulting in significant financial losses and criticism over the council's investment strategies. What are they doing with this money? Sending the money to banks in different countries when you're supposed to be a local authority in Kent. This is what they're doing. Last one, Worcestershire. Oh, God. This one, I forgot about this one. They had this weird thing with U-turning many policies. For example, with libraries privatization in 2019. They were planning to outsource library services. They did face public opposition. They eventually had to make a U-turn, but then the council had received the nickname during that time, actually over the last few years, of the UTurn Council, because they keep making U-turns. They don't even know how to do local democracy the right way. There is some good news in the middle of all this. Keir Starmer's move to go against democracy. Some councils have now rebelled and said, no, we want a local election. So these are the ones. Hertfordshire, Cambridgeshire, Lancashire, Nottinghamshire, and Staffordshire. So if you are from one of these areas, you are fine because your local leaders actually want democracy. So you will have a say. The rest of you guys watching from across England, you will be paying taxes. They will force you to pay taxes, but you will not have representation. Taxation without representation. Okay, now, the first comment says, this country stinks. In fact, the world stinks. Let's get some super chats as well. First one, thank you very much. Carmela says, we will all need to write to our MPs to object this. Surely they cannot get away with this. Oh, they can. Oh, they will. This is an attack on our democracy and freedom to vote. They really don't care, trust me. Another super chat, Elder says, total disgrace that there should be a referendum. Not going to be that. They don't care. That's the problem. What's this? There's no right and left. All there is our kids. You can stand with the NHS behind you, but we ain't effing stupid. That's about Starmer's speech, obviously. Postpones elections. Yes, those councils don't need to or don't want to devolve. It's just power grab nonsense anyway. Keep voting Labour to ruin the world. Yep, if you want that. Someone actually says the World Economic Forum will fill in. You don't really need, well, according to these guys, that you don't need the Democratic side because we're just going to look after you. Don't worry. You won't own anything, but we're going to look after you. Henley says that the government needs to be on a minimum wage instead of WTN. But the problem with that is that will create even more corruption because politicians who don't make much money, they're going to get more bribes. It's a lose-lose situation. You give them more money, they're just complacent. You give them less money, they're going to find a way to steal money. You just need better caliber of politicians. He says, it is our constitutional right to vote. Yeah, tell them that. Essentially, you know what they've done is over the last few decades, they have centralized politics so much in this country, in the UK. Everything is basically in Westminster. So you think that you have a say in your local areas because you've got local politicians. Actually, no. The reason they've done this is that so if they postpone elections on a local level, they could say, don't worry, nothing is going to change because we're still running things from Whitehall. That's basically what they've done. It's the exact opposite of the system in Germany and in the US and countries like that, even Australia. Just a reminder, obviously, of many cases, 4:15 p.m. Parliament channel, the petition debate, which won't last that long, by the way. We'll report the outcome of the petition debate right here on 2CTV live for you guys. In case you don't know, this is about the petition for people to actually that rebelled against the government and Keir Starmer because it got a lot of signatures. Parliament will have to debate it, and they will, debate it in the House of Commons later today. Again, if you want to stay up to date, watch 2CTV. We're going to give you guys the report and the analysis as well. Super chat from Bubba saying off with their heads. And Roy says, jail BBC for their mistakes when they jail Tommy. A lot of people are outraged about this, the local elections being cancelled, but not really from the media side, which is kind of fascinating, isn't it? Soon, the mainstream media articles will have headlines like how elections undermine democracy. You joke, but we've actually had some weirdos. I think it was 2 years ago in Davos, the World Economic Forum. Was it 2 years ago? I think it might have been 2 years ago. There was a panel of discussion with the so-called experts. They literally basically implied that, the same sentence, that actually it's tyranny of majority. People undermine democracy by voting the wrong way. It's democracy. That's just how it works. They don't like it. Anyway, once they make super councils, you can forget about local elections. And once those super councils are headed by our lovely Muslim friends, you can forget democracy. You have a choice in the West. Islam or democracy. You can't have both at the same time. And I love how that's a controversial thing to say. It's just basic logic of what both sides say. But both sides in terms of democracy and Islam, you literally have one side saying we don't like democracy. It's based on the book. You can't have that. You need to have a caliphate. The other side would say, well, we need to be liberal-minded. We need to believe in freedom. Obviously, Islam doesn't believe in that. Noah says, so how are you guys liking your Marxism now? There's still a lot of people burying their heads in the sand, right? Crazy. Mike says, all these councils are useless because they employ people who either are not native to this land or are not good enough to sit at a till in Tesco. They are stupid, yeah. And this was happening before the concept of DEI hires and woke diversity, because we were essentially just getting people who didn't really have anything else to do. They're like, oh, okay, I'll get a job at the council. That's not good enough. We have the same problem with teachers, by the way. Some new teachers, young people, they go to university, they change their mind, whatever they're studying. They're like, okay, well, I'm going to do a conversion. I'm just going to be a teacher. You need to be passionate and you need to have it in you to be a teacher. It's not an easy job when it comes to your moral responsibility to kids. This is the future generation. You can't just see teaching as a job. If you just want a job, go work in Sainsbury's, a supermarket. But this is what happens. You just have people who don't know what they're getting themselves into, and they get these jobs, and sometimes they just quit because it's hard, because people ask them to do things. And sometimes they just stay there and not doing anything about it. Shane says, did you see James Mathewson on GB News last night? No, I don't watch TV. Well, if I have to sometimes, for research purposes. Spouting all sorts of rubbish about Tommy. People like him are a big part of the problem. Yep, I agree. Thank you, Shane, for that. As I said, at 5 p.m. UK time, we're going to have Rajamia, the whistleblower from obviously the Oldham grooming scandal. And also, in about a couple of hours, we're going to have this so-called petition debate in the House of Commons, which again, we were going to bring you guys the live update and reaction and analysis afterwards. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.